I'm going to share with you the little things that we have to do in order for this to be a great webinar. First thing is that this is an interactive learning experience. It is not intended to be a tutorial. It is intended to be an interactive learning experience where your questions are important. And we may actually take a side road and chase your question down if we need to do that, if we think that's going to be in the best interest of everyone on the group. Second thing is that we always strive for mastery. The purpose here is not to duplicate something, but to learn a skill that can be mastered. And that's the important step in this process. The next thing is anybody, we're getting no sound. How's that happened? Who is it? Is anybody else experiencing that? All right. All right. If you're having sound issues, please let me know what browser you are on, because I have a funny feeling Demio, lots of platforms have trouble with any browser other than Chrome. Chrome seems to have the best experience for these types of platforms. So if you're not having sound, I'd really like to, yeah, in order of priority, can somebody put the refresh instructions on for me, please? That would help. I don't want anybody to miss out. But if you'll share the refresh instructions, F5, refresh instructions, that would be good. In order of priority, and we'll talk about this in just a moment. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, good, very good. Thank you. All right, we talk about the why more than we talk about the how, because the why is more important. People pay you for why. They don't just pay you for the how. Anybody can figure out how. As a matter of fact, how do I or how to is the #1 most Googled phrase that there is, beginning with almost everything that gets put on into Google. So they can always find out the how. It's the why that matters. The why is the important thing. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm doing well. Support and encourage each other. This is really, really important, and it's important to what I'm going to say in just a minute. I want you to have fun. This should be a fun platform. This ought to be a fun experience that you take an hour. Let's make this as enjoyable as we possibly can for everybody who's on, so we keep everything that belongs in support, and we keep everything that we can do to encourage each other in this webinar, okay? That will make it a really fun experience for everybody who's on. The next thing is just a little bit of an explanation about how we do the webinar. It's modeled after what I call the open Zoom room concept, and that is where your questions are really important. It's kind of a free form question and answer sort of a time period, and you feel free to ask questions as we go. And I promise you I'll do the best job I can of answering those. Sometimes it requires a little bit of background information, or I have to have some images ready, or I have to be able to find an image that fits that category, or whatever it is that has to happen. But sometimes we can't answer that, but we do our best that we possibly can. And this is a public problem solving forum. And I like to solve problems in public because I think that they really make a powerful difference when we do that. The next thing I want to talk about. Good morning, Sharon. Rob, I'm not sure what you're talking about when you say you can't get back in, you're unable to subscribe. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Stefan, good to see you. All right. Quickly, I want to share something with you that may be one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do in a webinar. So stick with me. I'm going to do my best to get through this, but I need to share something with you that's really important. A couple of months ago, our friend Gene Carey sent me this picture, and he was talking about, you may need to go back to the original link. Gene sent me this picture. He said, you spend a lot of time talking about your grandson, and I saw this picture and I thought about you. And I thought, how touching is that? What an incredible thing for somebody to do. And I really appreciate him doing that. I appreciate the encouragement of that. But I'm here to tell you this morning, last time that we were live on June the 28th, I had made the comment that I didn't see Gene that day. I wondered if he was okay. Gene passed away on July the 1st. I spoke to Rose yesterday. We found out yesterday that, and over the 3 years that Gene had not missed a single webinar, and he had not. There were times when I wanted to throw rocks at him, and there were times when I thought, what an incredible friend. And the truth is, he was an incredible friend. I got a message from him just a few weeks before he passed. And we were discussing some things, and I thanked him for having my back. And he said, look, I checked on you. I didn't say much, but I checked on you repeatedly so I could I could do the things I needed to do in the group. Joy, I agree. Let me say this. I don't know of anybody who put more stuff into the group and more effort into making people feel comfortable. He greeted every new person who came into the group. He'd done a lot on your behalf. He was incredibly helpful in these webinars. I had interviewed him a couple of years ago as one of the power users when we were doing the power user interviews. And I thought Gene was an incredible guy. I was shocked when I heard the news. So I just thought we'd take just a moment this morning. And y'all have been really, really good in the things that I've seen you say in the comments. And you can't say enough good things. Obviously, you can't, because I can't tell you how many times I was traveling someplace or doing something, and somebody would ask a question in the group, and I'd tell my wife, I should probably pull over and answer that. She'd read it to me. I'd probably pull over and answer that. But I'll let Gene handle it, and Gene would always handle it, and he was just really good about being able to do that. So I just thought I'd share a couple of the images and a couple of the things that Gene did that kind of illustrate kind of person that he was. The day that I had to be gone because I took the kids to camp, he was so good to be able to take the snippet from the webinar and share that to let people know that I was not going to be there, and gave my explanation snipped out of the webinar to share that with people. That's just the kind of guy that he was. He did an amazing job with those things. Was very, very committed to his local community. This was a really cool project that Gene had just started in the month of June, and they were going to take a day and go visit restaurants and try to support the restaurants and bring encouragement to them. Okay. So I just thought that was pretty cool. And then who could ever forget Gene and his grocery getter, that every time I was on the road, he would send the pictures of me and the grocery getter stopping at a McDonald's someplace so I could do the webinar. And I will always remember these, because they were kind of special. And I thought, there's some effort goes into doing this, okay? Yes, I totally agree, Sylvie. This has become a community. And when I said something about Gene not being on the 28th of June, I said, it's because we're family, and we are. Now, we'll post this in the group later, but I wanted to make the announcement on the webinar. I thought it was more important that we do it here rather than you see it in the group. I just felt like that this was the place that we needed to make the announcement first. And so I conferred with Rose. We agreed about that, and we decided that we would take a few minutes this morning and make sure that and I think the people who are going to listen on the replay are going to wonder, what in the world was that all about? But if you didn't know Gene, you won't understand. So it's okay. We did, and